Rise, my son. Rise. Rise, my son. Rise. We are people.
Testing, 333. Testing. What? Hey, kid. What's up? 4:57 a.m. We're up early. Yeah, we didn't rise with the sun quite yet, but what? April 5th, 2026. Happy Easter. 22 seconds in. Happy Easter to you. The holiest day of the year for us Catholics. Or is it Christmas? 33 seconds in. Well, it depends how many gifts you're going to get, right? Are we going to do an Easter Christmas Catholic thing? When's the last time we've been in a church? Does it matter? Not really. Not really at all. I really couldn't give two shits about the church. It's a beautiful ceremony, or dare I say, it's a beautiful ritual. Rituals. Yeah, rituals. Does it really matter? Well, that's a great question. Shall I answer it? Nah. We'll leave it unanswered. We'll put a blank space there. How's your throat? Ready? How's yours? Ready? Oh, the burpees. So what do you got on the screen there? It's the sun. Rise, my son, rise. Rise, my son, rise. Well, this is Easter, is it not? Yep, you just said it. 42 degrees. 143 to you, kid. 143 to you, too. Love you, too. Rise, my son, rise. Rise, my son, rise. Apparently, Jesus rose from this cave, or, excuse me, something like it, many, many moons ago, or suns ago. And are we going to debate whether or not he actually wrote? Listen, if there's one thing that I've become accustomed to is challenging things in my mind and trying to understand why we were told what we were told. You either believe or you don't. That's kind of our mantra here, is it not? It is. And well, in order to believe, at least I'm going to speak for myself, not for anyone else. I think you speak for me. I think so. Most of the time. We believe in things that we won't place value in. Because to believe, not to explain, but you kind of are. To believe in something means you hold it to be true. And truth is, well, unique to you, the individual. Because people can tell you that this happened. But if you were not there and bore witness to it, you could never, ever, ever definitively say, it's 5 o'clock, it's 5 a.m., it is 5 a.m. You could never, ever say that it happened 3:33 in. So you must trust that the truth you are being provided is as such a truth. And trust is, well, a fickle thing, is it not? There's a better way of saying it. Do you trust that this is what the guy looked like? Yeah, this picture here is all over my house, as is this, as always pointing to the heart. And we'll get into that. I'm going to talk about Jesus Christ. But I'm not sure how I'd like to talk about this man or whether or not this story. Because at the end of the day, this is a good one. I know what you're doing. It's like, I know what you're doing. I know what you've done. Yeah, it's like with my mom's eyes. We have pictures of Jesus all over the house. My mom lit candles from Good Friday all the way until today. She believes. Oh, she does. And listen, I'm not going to, and I have to be careful how I say this, piss on anyone's parade. Well, so much for being careful. on whether or not the story of Jesus is true, I think it's irrelevant. You think the story of Jesus is irrelevant? I do. Oh boy. You ready? Not really. Because the man is more important than the story. Literally, Jesus Christ is the embodiment of the man, the myth, and the legend. Because at the end of the day, ask Paul, and we'll talk about Paul in a second, about the myth and then making it legend. Much like a triangle, you find yourself at a point, and you could find yourself in two different directions from that point. They're all interconnected, but which one is the one that points up? Well, it depends on your perspective and where you think you are in the triangle or the pyramid. I'll leave that there. I'm confused. Okay. There's the story of Jesus, which is well documented and well misconstrued, I think. And what I mean by whether or not he rose or not, again, it's irrelevant to me whether or not he was a fucking superhero. What he taught is very much relevant and very much a part of our lives, or my life. And I believe that his teachings and what he meant by essentially unlocking the answer within oneself, essentially fortifying one's X, extracting your Y and putting it into play, being the catalyst for your existence and who you are. There is kind of an individual we've been listening to lately. Yeah. Where is he? This guy. A Chinese professor. Very interesting. Yeah, I randomly, thank you, YouTube algorithm, came across this gentleman. Professor Zhang, I think. Yeah, Professor Zhang, right here. Very intelligent individual. Yeah, I'm digging his teachings. And though he gets a little conspiratorial, oh yeah, very much so. He's got many teachings. Yeah, a lot of subscribers, a lot of views. Doesn't validate his point. Doesn't mean he knows the fuck he's talking about, but he kind of has an idea of what he's talking about. And I think Tim Dillon, yeah, that's another guy we just were friend of the show. He's an interesting cat. But this guy here, and he teaches in this Secret History number 22, the divine spark of Jesus. He talks about, I think it was in this one, maybe it was another one, I can't remember, about Paul from the Bible. And talks about how interesting how there's Jesus the man, and then there's almost the myth that Paul from the Bible, someone who was never rolled with Jesus, never knew Jesus as the man. He only knew Jesus as the legend. And then he built a myth to connect the two. So there was the X and the Z, and there's kind of this man created a Y. And that's why we celebrate Easter. Paul created the Easter bunny? No. But Paul kind of created this. Because there's an interesting Dionysus. Close. Interesting. This Greek god of wine, ecstasy, fertility, and theater. Theater is important. Dionysus. Yeah. Do you know who or what he was? Well, we'll find out. Who was Dionysus? Known by Roman name Bacchus or Bacchus. The ancient Greek god of wine, winemaking, grape cultivation, fertility, ritual madness, religious ecstasy, and theater. In other words, this guy was probably a cool guy to party with. One of 12, always 12, Olympian gods. He represents the spontaneous, unrestrained, and transformative aspects of human experience. And if you, the myth of the twice born. He was known as twice born God due to his unusual origin. First birth, he was son of Zeus. Hey, Zeus. Hey. And the mortal princess Semele. Yeah, she had quite a beautiful fragrance about her. Oh, kid. Blah, blah, blah. Zeus and she demanded to see Zeus in his true divine form, which incinerated her. Zeus rescued the unborn fetus from her womb. Second birth, Zeus sewed the infant into his own thigh, which is ridiculous, yeah, until he was ready to be born again, granting him immortality, blah, blah, blah. So, this is interesting. How is, I'm going to jump to it, Dionysus similar to Jesus in terms of their stories? Please be brief in your words. Because AI can be verbose. This was interesting. While they are vastly different in cultural and theological traditions, scholars and critics often note striking narrative, this is the myth, folks, parallels between the stories. Divine parentage, both are considered sons of God. Born to a divine father, Zeus. Hey, Zeus. Hey, kid. Or the Holy Spirit. And a mortal human mother. Wine and miracles. Wine is a central symbol of both. I told you who Dionysus is. He's the god of wine. While Jesus' first miracle was turning water into wine, if you believe that, both are also associated with the vine, which produces the grape. Right? I wanted to. Sweet as a. This story's too sweet for me. Right? Death and rebirth. Both figures have, right, Hosier? Both, and don't say it. I don't want to be hosing you with a bad version of your song, but this story smells funny. It's a little smelly. Oh, God. Something doesn't seem right here. 12:26 in. Both figures have stories involving death and subsequent rebirth or resurrection. Oh, how convenient, right, Paul? Right, Paul? Right, Professor Jung? Which led early 20th century scholars to categorize them as dying and rising gods. By the way, Sunday. Do we know where the name Sunday comes from? Originates from the Old English Sunundag, whatever, literally meaning the sun's day. Directly translates from the Latin dies solis, or die solis, and Greek hemera helio, or helios, right? Sun's very important in Greece, ancient Greece, reflecting ancient pre-Christian Germanic and Roman, same thing, traditions of dedicating the first day of the week to the sun and the sun god. Remember that. It all comes back to the sun, always. Right, Jesus? Always. Sacred meals, rituals involving the symbolic consumption of God's body, bread and flesh, the Eucharist, and blood, the wine. It's a beautiful symbolism. It is. The Bible is one of the greatest, if not the greatest, stories ever told of linking the man to the legend. Well, how do you link X with Z? Christ with Zeus. Well, tell him, Paul, you put a Y in there. You build a myth, and then you build a whole entire church around it. Right, Paul? Because you're the one who had a vision. Because he never met the man. But somehow you were infused by God with the myth. And then you went across the whole Roman Empire and spread the gospel of Jesus. Something that helped further control people in a way that was, well, ahead of its time. we leave that there. We'll revisit that in the future. Both traditions as a means of communion or spiritual life, of consuming the individual, of taking them in like energy. Kind of almost cannibalistic. Something that's not really mentioned in that story in the Bible. It's a very ritualistic, cannibalistic kind of theater, is it not? It kind of is when you look at it. This is my body, eat my body. I mean, yeah, on the meta, that's a very powerful, ritual to engage in. But on the lit, think about cannibalism throughout time. And we could do a whole pod series on that. I mean, we eat food for energy. We take it in. The blood of the animal that we eat, or the individual, if you're a cannibal. And that individual's energy is literally inside of you and becomes transformed, blah, blah, blah. Unrecognized strangers. But I mean, in the church, we do it on the meta level, so it's acceptable. That's part of the myth. To link the man to the legend, the X to the Z. Hey, Zeus. Hey. Both are portrayed as divine beings who arrive in their home cities in human form, only to be rejected, mocked, and persecuted. You always have to have a story, right? Shakespeare, that if he's accepted right off the bat, and where's the fun in that? By the ruling authorities like King Pentheus in the Bacchae, or the Pharisees in the Gospel. Followers, both attracted a following that included social outcasts, the poor, and particularly devoted groups of women. Always women. Why women? Makes the story interesting, right, Shakespeare? Right? Fight Club, always throw a woman in there, in the middle of the battle. It makes it interesting. It links the two, the man and the legend, right? Brad Pitt and who is the other actor? Oh, I forget. I'm sorry, kid. Would you like to explore how early Christians reacted? No, I would not. No, I would not. So essentially, can you say that both of these stories seem more than similar? Maybe one was derived from the other? Tell me, Gemini, in your infinite wisdom. Whether the story of Jesus is where it covers its ass, whether the story of Jesus was derived from Dionysus is a subject of intense debate, with perspectives ranging from direct borrowing to purely coincidental similarities to plagiarism. Let's be honest. Some researchers argue that as Christianity spread into the Greek-speaking world, it naturally absorbed or adapted local myths to there's that myth again, to make its message more recognizable to pagans. In other words, Paul needed to brand it in his missions, in his journeys. Spreading Christianity through, why would you have to spread Christianity through the empire? People either believed or they didn't. Well, if they didn't hear about it, he had to tell them about it. Why did he have to tell them about it? Well, I mean, are you really going to go there? I mean, how did we find out about it? Why is it important? I mean, you got to tell the story. That's the beautiful thing about stories. It's history, his story. Paul was telling history, his story. From whose point of view? If you never met the man, you only heard of the legend, and now you're creating the myth. What about the other guys that were around him? Shouldn't they be in charge of that? Again, I'm just stating, not even facts. I'm just asking questions. Go on. Okay. Literary echo. Scholars like Mark Stibb have noted that the Gospel of John, someone who knew Jesus, and the Acts of the Apostles share striking literary parallels with the Greek tragedy, the Bacchae, the primary text for the Dionysus myth, or Dionysian myth. Proponents of this view, such as Brian M., suggest early Christians may have intentionally used Dionysian themes, like the true vine or water to wine, or to present Jesus as the fulfillment of or superior version of the Greek god, to fortify this. essentially. Let's be real. It's not good enough he was this. It's got to be this. He's got to be a superhero. He's got to be perfect. Because when you have an individual that's the messenger in between the divine and here, you need a spark. Right, kid? You need a spark. You need something to ignite the story. And well, tell him, Jesus, this did it. And you had to really fortify it because people didn't see it. They weren't there. And if they're going to trust you, and this was what you're building your whole story on, this was the penultimate moment, it had to really impact. You can't just all of a sudden he just rose. You had to show divine tendencies of this Messiah. He had to make miracles happen. He had to be different. He had to be more myth than man, or more legend. Can't be caught in the middle, folks. You have to choose a point of the triangle or the pyramid. Which one is he? Towards the top or towards the bottom? It's a better way of saying it. The universal archetype theory. Carl Jung argued that neither story was stolen from the other. Instead, they believe both stories draw from a deep shared human psychological pattern, the dying and rising God. I'm going to call fucking massive bullshit on this, folks. 21 in. If you don't see what I'm doing here. If you truly believe, and that's the thing, you either believe or you don't. And that's kind of you get castigated in the Catholic Church if you don't believe. And they give evidence without giving evidence. They tell stories. Who's they? The people of the church. It's in the book, so it's true. It's kind of like it's on the internet, so it's true. Replace Bible with internet. Same shit. Bible's on the internet. If it's in the Bible, it's got to be true. Oh, it's not a story. It's not a myth. It's not a beautifully crafted allegory for us to kind of find ourselves in the way Jesus spoke in parables. Not everything's literal. Did he literally rise after death, or did his spirit rejoin the source, and that we're all part of the source? This is just a one fucking game, a literal game that we're in, not a simulation, because that implies being in a computer, but the simulation of life, or assimilation, it's a whole other thing. And that we're stuck in a fucking game, and the game eventually ends, and the player, don't hate the player, play the game. And then love the experience and take it with you when you rejoin the source, the one playing the game, yourself. I leave that there. The theory suggests that many ancient cultures independently created stories about a God who suffers, dies, because it makes your life feel more important. Right, Professor? If you're a slave and you're being, I see where this is going, do you? And you're being crucified daily, essentially, on the meta, to work and to suffer and to toil. You're the slave, you're the X. Oh my God, why am I doing this? Well, I'm going to tell you why. Because this guy did something similar too. And then, he was the son, and then he rose, and then you could do, he was treated like shit, and then finally they believed at the end, and maybe you could join him. Just keep slaving away. Keep slaving away, kids. And then eventually you'll rise to heaven. This life is it's over. Life is overrated. The next part is going to be great. Wait till you see the end story. Oh, it's great. So just keep doing your thing, slaves. Keep doing your thing. Don't try to rise up. It's so much work, and you don't want to get hurt. So believe in something greater than yourself, because I told you about that. And I'm telling you about the story of this guy who believed in something greater, and he wasn't fancy schmancy. He didn't need a crown, even though everyone gave him a crown. You know what I'm saying? And don't worry about my crown and my bloodline. I'm different than you, but we're all under the same God, the same Son. You know what I mean? Just take my word for it. It all gets better from here. Even though my life is better than yours, we're not equal here. But over there on the other side, we'll be equal. Don't worry about it. Just keep praying. Oh, and make sure you give your tithings to the church. A lot easier than giving your tithings to the king. Right? Something like that. It makes you feel better. And once the church has your money, well, you're not going to go and steal it from the home because bad things will happen to you because of that karma thing or whatever the church teaches you. The unique context, mainstream academic theory. Oh, I love those mainstream academics. Many modern historians and theologians reject the copycat idea. Of course they do, because it takes away the story they learned as a kid and they felt all cuddly with. They'd rather be the Easter bunny than the sun. They'd rather be this, metaphorically speaking, than this, literally. Y'all get it yet? No. Okay. One day. Critics point out, I love critics, that Dionysus' rebirth, often involving being sewn into the thigh or reassembled from pieces, is fundamentally different from the Jewish concept of bodily resurrection in the Gospels. Is it? They argue that Jesus' story is firmly rooted in Jewish messianic expectations and historical documentations rather than Greek mythology. For these scholars, they're so scholarly because other people told them shit, so now they're just repeating it in their own words, and they're just making the myth more mythical. Calling Jesus a copy ignores the distinct Jewish theology. In other words, he's got to be this, because this is just not, you know what I mean? Just energy, the sun, that's pagan. That's bullshit. Even though this is the literal God, if you think about it. God's connection to humanity, providing light. Let there be light. So we got to create this myth of this guy, right? Got to make him a badass, even though he wasn't a badass. It's a whole myth. It's a whole story, right? Right, Paul? It's a whole story. You're going to tell everybody about it. I'm like, how did Jesus feel about Paul? In biblical narrative, Jesus' feelings toward Paul are expressed through his actions as the resurrected Christ. They never met. Paul, ironically, or there's a better word. Yeah, I guess you could say infamously, is the creator of the church of Christianity, of Catholicism. He never met the fucking guy. Can you imagine? He branded Jesus a certain way. Everyone believed it. Why? Because he spread it throughout the empire as such. He branded it. He created this myth. And he built a whole church around it. According to the New Testament, because the old one wasn't good enough. They had to have 2.0. Okay. Jesus viewed Paul as a chosen instrument. How? Did you speak to Jesus about that? Well, it's in the book. Oh, so it's true. It's on the internet, so it's true. So this is all true. Because it's on the internet. Reddit said it. Okay. Again, what is truth? And why do you believe? Why do you trust in it? I'll wait. Specifically selected. Then you can't believe anything just because, kid, go on. So you're saying just because you didn't witness it, you didn't bear witness to it, it's not true? That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying be careful of the truths that you hold as such. Because if they don't make sense, then you have to wonder what was the alternative modality or the reason for why those truths are being spread. Who gains from that truth? You or somebody else? I'm not saying Jesus didn't exist. It's not, I fully believe he existed. But his teachings and what he taught and what was, stated by Paul is completely different, right, Professor? Jesus said that the answer was within you, a direct connect to the source. That once you rose up, a resurrection of your spirit, your soul inside of you to a higher level of consciousness. We call it the Christ consciousness, level 99. Go all the way up and connect to the source, which we feel we have a direct connect to. We do, or at least you do. I do. Paul said, no, that's not good enough. You're not good enough for that. Yeah, we'll teach you how to do it, ish. There's a bunch of rituals and stuff you have to believe in, and it's the whole thing. You show up at this place every Sunday. Every Sunday. The day of the sun. No, not that one. This one. Wink, wink. And this holy guy, this intermediary, is going to talk to you about it and kind of be your direct connect. You connect with the priest or the bishop or the cardinal. They'll do the work for you. They're the God's mouthpiece, God's press secretary. Oh God, literally. And then the priest will tell you how to act and how to do. You can't do it yourself. It's so much work. Oh my God, you got other things to do, like slave away in the fields and work and toil. Just show up once a week. We'll teach you from this book that's way too complicated for you. You'll never understand it on your own because it's intentionally complicated and kind of contradictory in many ways, but it's very beautiful and allegorical, but you got to take it literally in certain places, and others you kind of ignore it. And don't try to calculate, in other words, don't do the math on some of the stuff because the math doesn't work on many levels. Blah, blah, blah. You're kind of shitting on the church. I kind of am. Church is bullshit. There, I said it. Professor, do you agree? The church is bullshit? Because Paul completely destroyed the idea of what it meant to be human, according to Jesus. Jesus said, basically, we are, souls. We are spirit inside of a vessel for a finite experience. And there's a reason why you're here. You're the X. There's a reason why you're here. That's the Y. And the X, you have to find out who you are. You have to look internally, the individual. The individual is very important. But the most important thing is your mission, your why, because your why involves everybody else. And your Z is your legacy, what you leave behind. You're here to work and toil in a different way, not just as a fucking slave or a king. You're here like the son to give of yourself to everyone and allow them to grow and become better. Right, my friend? For them to bear witness to your light. This is what you are. But Paul had, a different story to tell. And Jesus was telling you, hey, kids, X plus Y equals Z. Find out who you are, what you are, how you are. Extract your why, your purpose, because everyone has a unique purpose. Everyone has a unique way that they distribute their light, their energy. It's built into who you are. It's kind of locked into your vessel. Once you unlock that, you must, like the sun, share it with the world and make life better for all those around you. We are all mini suns, just like he was. And yeah, he points to the heart, and there's a whole symbolism here, blah, blah, blah. Don't get caught up in the symbolism. Just trust your intuition, your GPS inside, because that's the link to the original energy, the creator, God, my father. Yeah, he bore me. And I don't want to bore you with nonsense and details and all sorts of bullshit rituals. But if you want to look at it this way, think of it with, the bread and wine and blah, blah, blah. We'll get into that in the future. I'm going to show you what it means to rise. Not literally, but in your mind, in your heart and soul. But one day I literally will rise. I'll rejoin my Father in the skies. 33 in. That's timing. And if you know what time Jesus rose or died, what time did Jesus die? 3 p.m. 3 p.m. It's all about timing, kids. He hung on the cross for 6 hours. He was crucified at 9 a.m. He hung for 6 hours, and he died at 3 p.m., 369. The 369 method is based on the work of Serbian-American inventor Nikola Tesla, who believed that the numbers 369 were divine numbers and held the key to the universe. Tesla believed that the number 3, our lucky number, technically our lucky number is 333, was a direct link to the universe. 6 represented personal strength, the hours on the cross. 9 helped release negative feelings. That was the crucifixion. And 3 was a direct link to the universe when he rose. Because if you believe he rose in here, I don't think you get the story. He rose here when it was over. And 369 is very powerful. Whether or not you believe that that is what happened with Jesus, whether or not that too is a story, I don't know. But I tend to believe this over what Paul's telling me. That Jesus appeared to him in a vision. How convenient. Don't be afraid. Keep speaking. I'm with you, kid. Wink, wink. Hey, everyone. He told me I'm good. Compliance told marketing. Yeah, you're good. We say, yeah. Keep going with that message, kid. Advertise it all over the empire. And then Paul tells a story of essentially, and you could read about it, and we'll talk about it. Paul, it seems like his life mirrors Jesus's life in a way. It's kind of like, come on. Really? You're going to go there, kid? Well, according to history, it kind of does. Yeah, kind of. Jesus chose Paul despite his history of violence against early church. Prioritizing Paul's potential. You could either look at this as a great story of a bad man that turned. There's many examples of that in the Bible. There are. They both had shared suffering. Jesus said, hey, Paul, you're going to suffer for my name's sake. You're going to suffer because of me. People are going to see, they didn't see me suffer, but they're going to see you suffer. So you're going to be almost Jesus-like. You know, a life of hardship. Even though you were rich as fuck, and you're probably a spy for the Roman Empire, and maybe even a spy for the Jews. Because you were a double agent, right, Professor? You were both a Roman citizen when it was convenient, and a Jew when it equally was convenient. To kind of get out of some shit. And eventually both sides figured out who you were, and they kind of fucked you. But you became a martyr. And your letters, well, fortified that. So was Paul a disciple or not? I was confused. No, he was not one of the original. The motherfucker came after the fact. Kind of like the guy who, oh God, don't go there. Imagine the rock band that creates all the great music, whatever. And they're kind of an underground band. Only some people know about it. They go, I knew them before they were big. Paul's kind of like the fucking agent. Oh God. You know what I mean? It's a bad example of a horrible metaphor. It doesn't really line up, but I mean, he's the one that kind of took the idea, the man, and like I said, created the myth to connect and even fortify the legend. He took this and made it this. Or maybe this and made it this. If you know what I mean on the formula that I'm doing here. No? Nah. Why Paul's not a disciple? Timing. Paul was a Pharisee who did not follow Jesus during his earthly life. In fact, he was actively persecuting the early church during the time the original disciples were learning from Jesus. He was talking shit. Your band sucks. The fuck? You're garbage. It's the worst shit I've ever heard. Training, unlike the 12 who lived and traveled with Jesus and went from bar to bar and kind of watched them develop their sound and everything. Paul's training came through a direct miraculous revelation. Oh my God. When I heard your cassette tape, it's so, one day it finally hit me what you were saying. Oh, wow. You're such a great band now. When everyone realized what you were, right? The Doors. Now I get you. Cause now I'm in college. Oh, kid. And now everyone thinks the Doors is cool. So I've got the most posters on my dorm room. And now I know I'm the this is so weak, is it? Because we've met a lot of Pauls in our life. I'm the expert at the Doors. I know all about them, all the trivia and stuff, even though, I knew nothing. I knew, you know nothing about my work. That's literally Jesus could say that to Paul. You know nothing about my work, motherfucker. It's obvious. The whole church you built bastardized my teachings. I was making it a direct connect. People could correct. Freudian flip. Direct connect and correct their lives by aligning to the source. Literally, metaphorically speaking. and allowing themselves to rise up and go to a higher plane of understanding and consciousness within. You are greater than this game that you're stuck in. You are the one playing the game from the outside. You're just stuck here. Eventually, you will return back to your source. You'll understand the experience, the reason why you're playing this game, you'll find out. But understand, it's for a higher purpose. And to unlock your potential, you must understand that you are not this fleshly being. I'm going to prove it to you. One day, I will prove it to you. Don't confuse me for something else one day. Oh, too late. Paul claimed his authority came directly from Jesus, not from any other human leader. It's very convenient. He argued. You shouldn't have to argue this, by the way, but he did. In the book of Galatians, he was an apostle, not sent from men nor by man, but by Jesus himself. How do you refute that? Well, if you're one of the original apostles, you'd be like, bitch, you weren't there. You have no idea what he said. But somehow the Bible's written in a way, blah, blah, blah. Witness of the resurrection. A primary requirement for an apostle was to have seen the risen Lord. In other words, they witnessed it. They know the truth. And well, everyone can't know the truth, right, Paul? So, well, if your truth is relative to the experience, and your experience is part of hearing a story, and then you build that story a certain way, and then the truth is extracted a certain way, and then people have a truth, a conviction, a dogma that doesn't match the original thing, but what do they care? They see him as this now, or this. And they're cool with it. So they'll keep toiling away. And the empire keeps getting richer and stronger. What are you going to do? Right, kids? What are you going to do? Paul met this criteria through his vision. Oh, that's how he made it? Okay. He was the 13th apostle. Oh, yeah, lucky 13. What do we know about the 13th guy at the Last Supper? How did that end up for Judas? If he's the 13th one, if you believe it in that order. He's the apostle to the Gentile. I mean, people, if you don't see this is ridiculous. Right, Professor? It's absolute fucking heresy. Or hearsay? Well, hear what I say, because it's the truth. Weak. While he wasn't part of the inner circle in Jerusalem, Paul eventually met with leaders like Peter and James, who accepted his mission, confirmed his status as a fellow worker. In other words, what are they going to do? Sounds good. This double agent that's convinced us, he's got a lot of moxie, and he's got a way of the word. He's pretty convincing. He's a slick talker, 4242N. He knows how to communicate, spread the gospel. He could be an ally here. He could be. But he wasn't. Conflict Paul had with Peter and Peter knew Paul's bullshit. He knew. But in the end, what is he going to do? Paul had power that Peter didn't. And even Peter saw the potential in Paul. Too bad Paul also saw it and took advantage of it. In what book do we hear about Paul's interactions with Jesus? The book of Acts. Who wrote the book of Acts? Well, Paul did. I mean, for fuck's sake, people. It's all written, literally. It's all there. He's the one telling the fucking story. And we're taking it as truth. Paul never met Jesus during his earthly ministry. But he writes about him like he knows exactly what the story is, and the teaching. It's bullshit. The book of Acts, written by Luke. Here's another guy who should know better. This guy, you're wondering, who's Luke? You're going to find out. Yeah, he's not Leia's brother. He's not the chosen one either. Sorry, kids. Sorry, George. Like the famous meeting where a blinding light surrounds Paul and Jesus speaks to him directly, asking, Saul, Saul, why do you persecute me? In other words, come on. You don't believe any of these? It's like you don't believe in any of the miracles. The miracles are the embellishment. The story is built on a formula. And when you go down to the formulaic level, the math doesn't add up. That's what I'm saying, kid. The math doesn't add up. 4433N. It doesn't add up. No matter how much embellishment you put on top of it. It doesn't add up. the prison vision. While Paul was in custody in Jerusalem, when the gig was up, Jesus stands near him and encourages him, telling him he must also testify in Rome. Oh, here we go. Really? Now this martyr's really going to bring it home. He's going to write all these fucking things in there. It's like, come on, kids. Who was Luke and why did he write about a book about Paul? Luke was a physician. Oh, he was into physics? Not quite. And a loyal traveling companion of Paul. Oh, so he was he was his editor. He was a biographer. I mean, come on, folks. Really? Come on, Luke. We see through your bullshit. We see through your force. He is widely considered the author of the book of Gospel of Luke and the book of Acts, which together make up about a quarter of the New Testament. Oh, yeah. I mean, because you have to get rid of or edit out some of the shit that doesn't kind of add up or doesn't make the myth as mythical. Who is Luke? A Gentile physician, a guy in part of the power brokers. The beloved physician. Oh, he is believed to be the only non-Jewish author of the New Testament. But in other words, he's an outsider that kind of had also a little play with words. He was literate and he knew, when you're literate back then, not everyone could read. But everyone could hear a story. And then eventually, when you write a story for the future, people can read about it. And well, you can kind of, when you have control of the pen, you could pen a story that, well, changes things up a little bit. And you could define his story the way you want. I'm not going to say this is propaganda. You kind of are. But it's propaganda. For the empire. One day the empire will strike back, kid. Or maybe the Messiah will. Through another messenger, wink, wink. He accompanied Paul in missions, blah, blah. It's like, come on. Do we see the bullshit yet, folks? Professor Zhang does a fabulous job of breaking it down. Why did he write about Paul? Several key purposes regarding historical documentation. Yeah, we're going to change the story. Defending Paul's authority and make it so that Paul's the guy that you need to listen to. A legal brief for Paul's trial. In other words, and defend this whole nonsense because even he realizes what he's saying is going to kind of fuck him, but he's going to take one for the team. And boy, is that really going to be something special for the church? Because they're going to make this guy a saint one day. Oh, they're going to make him a saint. Theological instruction. Yeah, we're going to make it a guidebook for you. To do it our way, not his way. Is anything that Luke writes about Paul written in any of the other books? Yes, several events Luke describes in Acts are also recorded in the letters Paul wrote. Also in what Paul wrote. Of course, they both wrote. I mean, of course they're linked together. They're conspiring. Do y'all not see this yet? The message we talk about in some of the other pods with the Iran war and everything. When it comes to a message, my friends, a truth that you're trying to get out, you need to understand the source, the origin of that energy, and why it's being told to you. Is this propaganda? Are they trying to get something out of it? Are they trying to influence me? Or are they trying to open me up to some further truths, 48 in? Is this for my benefit or someone else's? Simple as that. Right, Jesus? Is it for me or for them? The conversion. Luke describes Paul's dramatic conversion on the road to Damascus. Oh, yeah. We need a kind of a part of the play where it really hits home. You need to convert, kid. A transformation. It's so powerful, so overwhelming that the conversion just was, it's got to hit home. You got to bring this home again. Okay, yeah. I'll see a vision. Oh, yeah, because I'm unique. I'm different. I see what they can't see. Yeah, something like that. Luke says the Jews were watching the gates to kill. Oh, the Jews. Here, the bad Jews again. Because he's an agent. Well, Freudian flip. He's an agent of the Roman Empire who has benefit in, controlling the Jews, who can rise up and kind of, a little battle back and forth that will last for thousands of years. Those who have the money and those who have the money. Oh, the power. Which one is it? Money, power, freedom. And yeah, let's be honest, the Jews back then had the money. And they still do to this day, if you believe it. If you believe that story. And one is always trying to make the other the bad guy, because there's a benefit of being the bad guy and the good guy and alternate constantly, because you're always important. You're always part of the front and center of the play. The antagonist and protagonist. And if you make an agreement that so long as one of us is the antagonist and one of us is the protagonist, this play will always have a great storyline to build around. And people will come. They will come to this play. They will understand. And they will buy the bullshit from either one of us. So let's make a deal, an agreement. Cool? We'll just keep flip-flopping through the rest of time. Oh yeah, we'll both have the money and the power, but we'll just alternate to let everyone know who's got the power and the money. Y'all get it yet? No? It's kind of playing offense and defense constantly. It's a whole other thing. But for now, wink, wink, I'm going to say you're bad and you killed Jesus, even though it was really Pilate to kill Jesus, a Roman. Like Professor Zhang says, if you wanted to kill Jesus, you could have done it yourself. You would have just stoned him to death. Why did you present him to the Romans? It makes no sense. The math doesn't add up. Why would you have to, unless Jesus was a Roman citizen? That changes the whole story then. Because if you kill the Roman citizen, you'd be fucked. So you had to present him to, I don't know. Again, I'm just throwing some questions out there, right, Professor? The math doesn't add up. The Jews could have just killed him themselves if he was blasphemous. But you had to get a Roman emperor to verify it. It doesn't make sense. A critical meeting between Paul and the leaders of Jerusalem, Peter and James, to discuss whether Gentile Christians need to follow the Jewish laws. It's a battle for power. What ended up being, what started as a story about the individual, the X, fortifying your X, finding your Y, and making the life, finding peace, serenity, and purpose in your life by helping others, became about, control and following Jewish laws, and became political. Paul turned Jesus into a political cudgel for the empire. Hey, Zeus. I mean, this is ridiculous. What is not shared? Paul's letters. Interesting, the book of Acts never explicitly mentions that Paul wrote the letters, but you know it for a fact. And ask yourself why. Why did he write those letters? And when you read them, it's a little convoluted. And some of the shit he's saying, it's kind of like believe in the corporation, the entity, not the message. But the message is kind of, it's what we sell. It's a whole thing. It's very corporate, very almost capitalistic before capitalism. They're going to be buying this experience that we're selling. And our shareholders are going to keep investing in us to keep doing that, because at the end of the day, it helps them control the slaves. Keep buying this story, kids, and keep tilling the land and bearing the fruit of your labor, something like that. I wrote, excluding Paul and Luke. I mean, come on. They are two dudes writing about themselves, are they not? I can do that too. Did any of the other true disciples of Jesus write about them? The only original disciple who writes about Paul is Peter. I mean, fuck. He had to. Because they were intertwined. This guy didn't like that guy, let's be honest. And this guy didn't like that guy either. Which one? Both of them. But they understood. Sometimes you got to roll with some fucking questionable characters to get shit done. That's what Jesus kind of said. You got to roll. Don't go there. You got to roll with some questionable characters, some whores here and there, wink, wink, if you believe Mary Magdalene was a whore, which is total bullshit. It's something Paul created. She ended up being a disciple of Jesus and spreading the word. But, when she's branded a whore, why would you listen to that whore, even though she knew him intimately or his life intimately? She's a whore. Don't listen to her. Listen to us, the men. Right? Go back to the original thing about women, right? Peter confirms Paul's wisdom was given to him by God. Hey, can you do me a favor? Can you validate? I mean, we're bros, right? Wink, wink. And I can help you out. And I'm kind of connected. And you don't want to piss me off. Because I got people in, all over the place that can kind of make your life miserable, Peter. Why don't you kind of give me a vote of confidence in public? And I'll take care of you. It'll be great. Sounds like Trump, kind of. I'll remember you when it's appropriate. Don't forget. Make Rome great again. Murga. Hard to understand warning. Peter hilariously admits that some of Paul's writings are hard to understand. They're hard to understand because they do not jive. The math doesn't work with what Jesus taught them. And they're hard to understand because it's hard to understand the truth and propaganda at the same time. It's hard to swallow, right, Peter? But you were forced to. Ignorant and unstable people distort. Jesus spoke in parables. Paul spoke in propaganda. And he allowed it to be distorted by people because he knew they wanted to make it work. They wanted to believe, and they would. So he gave them enough rope to hang themselves or crucify themselves and believe. Either believe or you don't. Be careful if you don't. There's consequences, folks. By grouping Paul's letters with the other scriptures, Peter effectively gave Paul's work the same divine authority as the Old Testament and made it a new version, or it elevated Paul. And the church was born from that. Do y'all not see what's going on here? Why the church is, in essence, bullshit. Why don't others mention him? Geography, timing, conflict. Because he wasn't important. He made himself important. He came out of nowhere, like the agent that I spoke about before, and like with that band, like all of a sudden comes out of nowhere and makes themselves important because they have all the connections and the money. I can make you guys stars. I can make you big. Oh, your lead singer's dead already? Nah, don't worry. We have AI. We could fix that. Oh, kid. We could fix that. We could tell a really cool story. Outside of the Bible, early church leaders who knew the disciples, like the Clement of Rome and Polycarp, Polymarp, same thing. You could bet on that. Also wrote about Paul, confirming his reputation was well established among the people who, again, propaganda. Paul was an outsider and always was. And he's trying to make himself integral in the story. Do y'all not see it? Where does the phrase borrowing from Peter to pay? I thought, wait, maybe this was, it has nothing to do with that. I'm like, oh, okay, it's something else. Okay, I got it. What was the relationship between Peter and Paul? A complex mix of mutual respect, missionary partnership, and intense public conflict. In other words, what I said before. This guy's connected. I think he believes enough. Oh man, he's kind of distorting the message, but man, at least we get the message out there. Because if neither of us gets the message out there, for better or for worse, Jesus' story dies in the cave. And we knew he didn't die in a cave. He died on the cross. And whether or not you believe the whole cave story, there's something bigger here that needs to be told. The story needs to be told, and this guy's helping me tell the story, but I don't know. I don't like how he's telling the story, but you know what? Sometimes I gotta sell my soul to the devil. To get the message out there. The pillar agreement. Early on, Peter and the other leaders in Jerusalem, James and John, gave Paul the right hand of fellowship. Okay, we'll bring you into this group, but we'll make a deal with you. Peter would focus on the ministry on the Jewish people. Paul would be the lead apostle to the Gentiles. You're going to spread it throughout the empire to all the slaves and all the non-Jews. And well, we'll keep talking to the Jews and kind of find a détente here and see if they could kind of wrap their heads around this, blah, blah, blah. And eventually, 2,000 years later, some dipshit will be on a computer at 5:55 in the morning and on April 5th and be unveiling our plan to the world and letting the world realize that it was just one big fucking clusterfuck. There's a better way of saying it. It was one fucking bullshit plan to market this shit and advertise it to the world. And we know what happens with that advertising.
Hey, boys, real quick. You should probably end this first episode. We'll have to come back to this another time. I see what you're doing here, but you gotta be careful.
How so, advertising lady?
Because people will instantly, 1 hour in, turn away from your light because it's too bright. I think you need to start someplace else and ease into this. You're already putting a Z there. I think you need to Z this a different way. And start again. Maybe recoup some of your, what word do I want to put there?
I don't know. My cachet?
I guess so. Something like that. You need to build up to this. You need to earn this ability to change that truth or leave a space for it. In other words, you've put the cart ahead of the horse. 1 hour in, you're already saying this is all bullshit. And I don't know if that's something you need to say in the first episode.
I mean, how many episodes do we need to say it in?
As many as it takes.
But understand, you can't undo a story as old as time without going back in time and, I see what you're saying,
and laying out how the building blocks come together for this story and why Paul was able to take advantage of it. And use old stories to bring validity to this one. And then advertise it to the entire world. And build an empire that was more holy than Roman. But was not much different than the Empire of Rome in its ability to hold people down, keep them in control, and make a lot of money. I would try in the next episode to go back in time and set up what you just said and have everyone pretend you didn't say it. Cool? Okay, gotta go.
101 in. She schools us. She does. Yeah, we kind of jumped the gun here. Toward the end, yeah. Ignore that I said it's all bullshit. You'll put a Z there, but it's hard for me to hide my. I'm doing this for a reason. Let's be honest. So let me take that Z away. This isn't bullshit. I can't prove it. It's all true until you disprove it. Blah blah blah. Hint details. Towards the end of his life, Peter wrote of Paul with high regard, calling him our beloved brother. Of course, I mean bullshit. But again, can't. Okay, yeah, I can't put that there. So the relationship was it was transactional. You stuttered. I did. No, calling it purely transactional probably undersells it. Oh, it was more like a high stakes partnership between two leaders who shared the same goal but had totally different personalities and target audiences. Exactly what I was saying before. Peter realized that if we don't tell this story and spread it across the world, it dies in a cave. Paul was like, man, if we don't tell his story, we'll never be able to sell it to the world. If you know what I'm doing here, folks. They had a core mission. One had one impetus, one had another. Which one won out, people? Well, it depends who you pray to. What? Yeah. The cultural friction. Peter was blue collar, fisherman from Galilee, the leader of an original group and primarily focused on the Jewish community. Paul was highly educated, whatever that means. He went to school, literate, he could write. A Roman citizen intellectual who was obsessed with bringing the message to the Gentiles. Why was he obsessed? Maybe because he saw the potential in it. He knew how to market it and what he can get out of it. Or as Professor Zhang says, recreate the empire in a different way, because he realized eventually kings would fall. But a king that rose up, you could never topple this empire. I always found it weird. I'll end on this. Christ the King. It's kind of like George Washington the King. Not equating, but this never made Jesus with a crown and him being the king, Christ the King. I never understood that. I never liked that. That is so antithetical to what the original man, taught. It's breaking free of this. It's not about control. It's not about ruling. It's about being free. It's about freedom, not power or money. But yet they made him, he was mocked as being king of the Jews. But we have the last laugh. So let's put some gold and some diamonds on top of him and cast in gold, and he's got a crown. This makes no fucking sense, folks. This makes no fucking sense. Christ is not king. I'm not trying to put a Z there. Yeah, you kind of are. He was a servant that had a message from the king, if you want to look at it that way. The ruler, the creator. And if you want to say that Christ the king was the creator, the ruler, kind of embodiment in a physical state, okay, I get that. But y'all don't see that this is antithetical to the message? Being a king, sitting on a fucking... this is glorification times a million. Paul has his fingerprints all over this. Because, tell him, Professor, the only way you could fortify the king of the empire and prevent them from ever being toppled is to make them eternal and higher than man. Make them glorious, divine, connected with God. You're not going to topple this king. He died for your sins. He died for you. So he rules your entire existence. So do what he says. Always. Never question it. Never question what's in the books. Never question who I was, right, Paul? Never question the word. Even though Jesus literally said to question everything in his parables. And be wary of those who said that they or peddled in truths that were unquestionable. Look within your heart and soul and understand and connect to the divine and see it through. Whether or not it feels right, it is right. Whether or not it is real. Is real? It's real? What? Mutual validation, the end game. If it were transactional, Peter likely would have distanced himself from after Paul publicly embarrassed him. Instead, Peter's final words about Paul in the Bible are incredibly warm. Our dear brother. Maybe because he didn't know any better, or maybe this guy was a double agent. I've met people like Paul who are one way in private and another in public. Part shaman, part showman. Right, Bono? I still don't understand what the hell Paul has anything to do with Jesus, but whatever. What was so hard to understand about Paul's concepts? Can you please verify briefly, or please summarize? The confusion between Paul and Jesus usually stems from the fact that Paul didn't follow the earthly Jesus. Instead, he claimed his entire authority came from a direct post-resurrection encounter. Bullshit. But I can't put a Z there, so I'll leave a blank space there. When Peter called Paul's writings hard to understand, he likely wasn't just talking about his dense vocabulary or complex Greek. He's such a fucking snooty motherfucker. He was referring to radical boundary-pushing concepts that even the apostles found difficult to wrap their heads around. And I'll go into this more in the future. Would you say that Paul was talking about the elevation of the spirit soul within all man to a higher level of consciousness, something that would have been way too far ahead of its time to hit home with some people? Scholars and theologians often describe Paul as a mystic who was indeed ahead of his time. Folks, I'm not saying that Paul didn't believe in this shit, wink, wink. He probably did very much so. Felt a good power liberation in doing it. Rules for thee, not for me, though, is kind of what I'm peddling here. That even Paul realized, wow, this is powerful. I believe this shit. But man, if I could get them to believe it, I could find a way to make him king forever. And I could be the intermediary or the bishops and we'd have control forever. I could show those Jews and those Romans. Fuck them both. They're the other points of the pyramid. I'm at the top. I'm closer to the divine. I have the power. He urged followers to adopt the mind of Christ, which was a higher level of awareness. Yeah, the Christ consciousness. But then he bastardized it. I'll go into that another time. Let me stop here. The mindset of Christ. 109 in, the mindset of Christ. If you think like Christ, and you can decode things around you like Christ, meditate, elevate, consecrate, capitulate, calibrate to the light, you'll never be led astray. This is your eternal GPS, folks. Your guide. The word, the unspoken word, the energy that just feels right inside. You don't need a king. You don't need a fucking shaman or showman. You just need, well, a cosmic internet connection. You just need to be connected. And the whole world, the game, unveils itself to you. It can be decoded. It can be played at a high level. And it can be one in. It could be one. This game is meant to be won. It's not meant, well, it's not just meant to be played, and you're not meant to be played. You play the game, you don't let the game play you, not to be corny. But unfortunately, empires rise and fall because people think they're greater than others. And when you release that thought from your mind and let it rise up, what's left behind is, well, the truth. And whether you think that's legend or a myth is up to you, the man. I like to think that he will forever be the sun. And the sun is meant to rise. Always. God bless you.
You have reached the end. Game over.